So do you, given the current state of Team Liquid, do you foresee that TSM is good? Like, if you had to pick the top 3 teams who are going to Worlds right now, like, do you, because I was struck by Team Liquid afterwards, the Jensen interview, he basically said, like, we're not concerned about TSM at all. It seems like most of the teams, their attitude is that they don't really give a shit about TSM. Like, it seems like most of the teams are very confident going into that matchup. So who would you put as the top 3 teams?
Probably say right now, Team Liquid, Evil Geniuses, and TSM. And in no particular order, I think Evil Geniuses, everything is pushing in their direction. Team Liquid right now is showcasing that like things are coming together and they didn't need that time to like rebuild the synergies that they had in spring. And then I think TSM is just a really solid, consistent team and have an amazing jungler in Spica and Huni. I think Spica, Huni, I think are like a top jungle duo. So I think those teams go through 100 Thieves, Cloud9, and like who else? 100 Thieves and Cloud9. I just think as teams really need to learn how to. I mean, we kind of already talked about it. Cut losses, understand like you can still come back in the next play, and also I think have a better idea of the meta.
I struggle. Well, see, I would agree with Raz if I have to take the teams at their current power levels. Yeah. I would 100% agree with him. What I run into, Raz, and the problem that I run into is that I have to assume that neither Cloud9 nor 100 Thieves are going to improve by the time they could theoretically face TSM. Yep. And I think betting that neither of those teams, given the talent level on those rosters, do it is very difficult for me to bet on. Mm-hmm. So, like, in the same way that we saw Team Liquid step up versus Cloud9, I assume that in a theoretical world where we eventually see Cloud9 and 100 Thieves play each other, that one of those teams is actually going to be good by that time. And once that team is good, if I assume that TSM is going to be somewhere in the losers bracket waiting for them because I, like you, predict that TL will beat them, I have to say that I don't see a world. I would hedge my bets and say that it's unlikely that both of those teams suck by the time they face TSM.
That's a fair point.
I personally, I don't know who it's going to be because it requires somebody to step up. But my feeling is that 100 Thieves is going to be able to do it, especially if they go back and dig around in their champion pool for some of these flexes. Yeah. Like, I think they are going to make it very difficult to prepare a draft against them during these playoffs. And even if they lose to EG at first, I think that they're capable of beating C9. I think they're capable of beating TSM.
It would be tragic if 100 Thieves didn't make Worlds. And like,
it's sad, yeah.
It would be very sad for a team that basically dominated Summer Split, has like the talent. They have the talent level, almost across the board. Like they have like their jungle, mid, both bot laners. Someday is still like a really sturdy player. So I would say that like that team should be able to make Worlds. And also like I think their strategy in terms of how they draft is smart. I think their improvements are a lot less, actually, than what Cloud9 has to do, but we just have a lot of sturdy teams right now. We just have too many good teams, at least within the league.
Yeah. Plus, technically, we haven't seen 100 Thieves play yet, so we have no idea what a Reapered best-of-5 draft looks like.
That's true.
I can't wait, because I tell you what, I've had some very interesting surprises in past teams, so I'm looking forward to seeing it, because that's the fact that people aren't taking into account. Like, bearing in mind, he also sat the players for those last games. Like, there could be anything coming out of this draft. Anything whatsoever.
God. I'm looking forward to it, actually. Who do you think, Thor? Do you think TSM will be the third team?
The problem is, I agree with like the premise of what was said earlier. If you go on current form, you can't really hate on them. They probably do deserve the third spot out of these teams that are available, if not a top 2, top 3 spot. The problem is, I agree. It's like, it depends, because logically, if you look where they would face them, right, so they're probably going to have, assuming they lose to Team Liquid, they have an easy series initially, and then basically they play probably the winner of C9, and it'll either be 100 Thieves or EG. I could see that team obviously beating TSM there, so if I had to bet today, I would take TSM as the third spot, but I'm not so sure for the actual, like, once we get to that point. Thing is, though, I also do feel as though, as much as it's easy to point out flaws in TSM, they also seem like they have a pretty good sort of basement level compared to the other teams.
Yes,
like,
they do.
I've seen them lose games, but they never, like, get completely smashed the whole way through. Like, like some of the other teams. Some of these even top teams in the playoffs can have games where they just look so whack and then next game look good. So I think actually TSM is probably harder to beat than some of the other ones, even if they do indeed lose to them.
100%.
I just think it's harder to imagine. I think where I struggle is it's harder to imagine like TSM reaching a new skill ceiling in these playoffs.
Yeah, I don't know where. Put it this way, I don't know where they go to win the league. For example,
but their ceiling is also low, so that's what I get confused by. And honestly, I think as much as fun as it is for me to watch TSM get their shit kicked in at Worlds, like at the same time, like I think they will probably do the worst out of all these teams at an international level because of the skill level on the team. So if I want to watch better games at Worlds as opposed to my own amusement of watching TSM lose, I think I'd rather not have TSM go if I had a preference.
I also think compared to the other teams we're talking about, like they're actually a team where the players in the team they're pretty known quantities. You pretty much know what you're going to get from each player in the game. Yep. Like they're one of the few teams in the LCS. I feel like if you told me the champion the players played, I could probably tell you how well he played in the game. Like they're actually quite consistent in that regard,
Yeah, I do think the one angle that's worked really well for them in the playoffs is that, or at least it's going to work well for them. It worked well for them in week 9. Is that meta's moving towards mages in the mid lane. So you can for sure just go towards the Azirs, the Orianas, like things like that for Power of Evil, and it works really well for them. I think it works well for the team. It should. So if they're going to win, it's because the meta actually does, A, it's favored them, and B, they're a really solid team. And I think like their play around Spica and Spica's own performance is just like top tier. So how do I feel about them going internationally? I mean, I do think you need to have more angles. What's it called, as a team, like you just need to be a little bit more flexible. Or if you're just like really fucking good at one thing, then I just need to see that from TSM. One or the other. They need to either be like flexible and solid, so like they can just be a consistent team that you know them for, or if they're just like, hey, we're just playing full team fight, front to back. Loss is just janitorial lady carry, and our mid laner is just like consistent DPS mage. Then it's like, okay, like this is just who TSM is. I want to see either one from them in their next series.
Yeah, I agree. Certainly, I mean, I think there's definitely a world where they go through it. It's fun that these playoffs feel so unpredictable compared to other LCS playoffs. And
by the way, sorry, go on.
Yeah, I think Spica also has had a very good performance, and we know Spica steps up in kind of big games or international play, which is wonderful about him. So I'm not concerned about their style suddenly falling to pieces in these playoffs because of Spica.
By the way, just before you go, Raz, like I'm assuming you already submitted all the votes and stuff. Who did you actually vote for MVP? Can you tell us? Do you mind?
I can't tell you. I got to keep.
Tell you not to say if you're broadcast.
So Raz, in a world where you could vote for MVP, who would you vote for?
Hypothetically,
hypothetically,
if you weren't you, but you indeed wouldn't have it in your body now. Hypothetical.
So let me ask you a different question.
Okay.
If I was capable of voting for MVP, and you could possess my body,
I could possess your body.
If you could astrally project into my body and possess me, who would I write on the MVP
I think
ballot?
you would probably write a TSM player. I think you'd probably write.
Probably Spica MVP, right?
Yeah, it could be. It's possible. I think you would do that.
See, there's always ways to answer these questions, right?
Also, that would be, by the way, Monty's, like, that meme format where it's like, reply to this tweet, and so that it seems like it's a normal answer, but someone knows you're being held hostage. The joke is that would be Monty's, wouldn't it? It'd just be him replying to like the LoL esports tweet, like, I vote for a TSM player as my MVP for this split. It would be the code that there's something very wrong going on. Someone call the house. Someone call.
So I'm just saying, if they have that type of player that you think that they have,
fair enough.
They should be able to make it to Worlds.
So we've talked about how MVP was kind of difficult this season because there wasn't, I think, a clear-cut candidate. Spica would definitely be up there. I said Impact has had an incredible split, I think. Would you name any other possible candidates that you would consider?
I would consider Fudge. I think like that was a difficult for sure. Listen, for me, I think Fudge is another solid one. For MVPs, Abadaga and Jizuke. Sure. So like, because I think mid lane was pretty much a race between those two players.
Yes.
And I'm also a person that I think people already focused too much on recency, like how they've been performing the last 3 weeks, and not so much like the first 6 or so, right?
Yeah.
And so for me, like 100 Thieves players, like absolutely, and that's why I was leaning. I would say Abadage was another player for sure that I still thought was the best mid laner, the most consistent mid laner, through the body of work. So I would consider him. If someone voted him, I'd be like, okay, I understand why they would vote him. Like,
who do you think is the biggest MVP imposter?
Oh, let's see.
That people might vote for, but you think doesn't deserve it.
Probably, it's either. Let's think. Let me think.
Maybe Blabber?
If that would happen, I would be really surprised.
Because surely he'll get some votes because he
happen.
has won all these past ones. He's probably going to be still
Yeah.
considered at the top. It's probably not impossible someone votes for him. I'm trying to think who else they would vote for. That's
Poor
the-
It would
JJ,
either be
maybe.
him.
JJ was
Probably.
first team all pro if you had to vote for somebody on Team Liquid.
Yeah, maybe Closer, because I think Closer is like a top 2 jungler right now. But like I've always thought that the MVP should be the top of his position, of course, very clearly.
Yes, sure.
So if I, just like that's just where I would see it.
All right. Well, that's it.
Thank you.
Go pitch the Dardock trash talk segment, please. Thank you.
We'll see where that goes.
All right.
All right.
Thanks for joining us, Raz. We're going to take a break, come back with viewer questions in just a few minutes. So we'll see you there.
All right. Appreciate
Want to see more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, be a pleb and don't.